Howdy everyone. I'm back this time with something a little bit different. I'm running a small UB tournament for the Australian and New Zealand scene. We've only got 10 people signed up, so it's nothing massive or anything. But I have allowed all the auxiliary books, the giant supplement, and we've got a special addition to it basically where for every army you can take a wizard of any path if you want to, just like a toughness 3 human type dude with whatever path you want. So it sort of opens up some build ideas and possibly some broken shit. We'll see how it goes. What I'm basically going to do today is I'm just going to go through the list for him and the matchups for round 1, which I've already done as well, and give you some predictions, tell you what I think about the lists, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So the first one, we've got Hugo with Dread Elves against Damo with Empire. Hugo's got a Beastmaster on a Dragon, Outcast Master of Cosmo. He's got a unit of Spears, a unit of Crossbowmen, 3 units of the Raiding Party, 2 of them Corsairs and 1 of them Beastbreakers, a unit of Obsidian Guard with the extra speed Swift Stride banner, 6 Black Cloaks, 3 Bolt Throwers, a Kraken and a Hydra. I don't know about Hugo's list. It's quite, like, on the one hand, it's sort of different to what I've generally been seeing with Dark Elf lists, but it's got a few elements that seem to be not popping up frequently, but when you take a shooty list, it's quite similar to what I see from a lot of the shooting-heavy Dark Elf lists these days. I think it's pretty good. It's a little bit hard to tell because I sometimes struggle with mobile shooting armies and sort of judging exactly how dangerous they can be. I think it's quite good because he's got the General and the Dragon, who's a fairly good combat character and can sort of sit back, assuming that Hugo has a range advantage in most games, and be a countercharge threat. The Obsidian Guard are a good combat unit with a decent bit of speed, because I guess with Kedron's Pennon, they'd I think be advanced 6. With Academy training, they're probably advanced 7 on the charge, and they have Swift Strides. They're basically like mini cavalry. Kraken and Hydra are both really good monsters, at least in my opinion. And then, while his shooting is kind of short range, it's pretty good. I've played against Triple Repeater Battery once, and this was with my Beastmen, so again, an army that they're sort of particularly good against because of the no armor saves and everything, and generally easy to get wounds with shooting. But I think they're quite good. The only concern I have with Hugo's list is I think it might be a little bit sensitive to matchups. So if things can walk through his shooting, he does. I mean, he's got the countercharge stats, obviously, but I don't think he's really got a solid enough base to the army that he can stand up and fight against, say, as we'll see later on, maybe a Warriors army with Druidism and Sloth on all of the characters, on all the units. So I think Hugo might have some trouble with some matchups here. I've decided to steal a thing from Slanrat podcast when they were reviewing lists, where they had a power score and an originality score. So I'm going to do that for all these lists. And I think Hugo's list I would give an 8 out of 10 on power. I think it could be stronger than that, but I'm not willing to go all in because I have some concerns about it. But it could easily be better than I think it is, but I'm reckoning about an 8 for now. Originality, he didn't take the Wizard Master that you can take, Wizard Wally, so I can't give him full marks there, but I think it is relatively original enough that he still gets a pretty decent score. So I reckon a 7 out of 10 originality score. Yeah, that'll do. He's playing against Damo. Damo's got an Empire list. He's also decided not to take Wizard Wally, so I really don't understand where you guys are finding your fun with these lists. Damo's got a Prelate on the Altar of Battle. He's got a Wizard on Arcane Engine of Div. He's got a Wizard on a Great Griffin of Pyro. He's got a Wizard on a Great Griffin of Alchemy, which is pretty cool. He's got a BSB, just sort of, I think Black Steel give him a 1-up armor save, if I'm not mistaken. 2 big spear blocks with Legion standard. So with the Legion standard on the BSB, you'd imagine one of them's getting 4 ranks and one of them's getting 5 ranks. A couple of light shooting units, and some of them are Reeters, so chaff as well when needed. Double Wally gun, mortar, and then he's taken 2 of the supplement giants, both with Big Fan of Sunna and Big Brother. So I'm pretty sure Big Fan of Sunna basically makes them like flagellants, but I'm not sure if they get... I'm pretty sure they get Fearless and Battle Focus, and then they either get Unbreakable or the removed Agility 1 or 0 or whatever it is for flagellants. And I think this might be a list that Hugo really struggles with, because he outranges him for the ranged magic, ranged damage. The Imperial Giants probably won't live long, but it might be... then again, Damo does have all those sort of single model characters who are probably going to be quite vulnerable. Yeah, I don't know. I think the matchup's going to go either really badly for Hugo or really well for him. So, basically, I don't expect a close game. I expect a relatively large win for one of these guys. Damo's list, I'm not really sure about. I don't think it looks that strong. It's got a lot of things that you don't see very often. Like Wizard on Great Griffin seems like pretty good value. For 290 points, you get, like, not a monster, but like a decent single model. You've got spells that he can cast, but he can also fight a bit because of the mount. Like, it's sort of if you include the altar, it's sort of like got 5 monsters-ish in it, as well as decent shooting support and 2 blocks that are at least fairly hard to move. I don't think it's that strong. I'm going to give it... I think it's below average strength, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 for strength or power. But I reckon it's super original and super cool. So, if he included Wally, I could give him a 10, but I'm only going to give him a 9 because he doesn't have Wizard Wally. But the Wizard on the Great Griffin, the inclusion of the Imperial Giants, I reckon it's a sick list. So, Damo's getting a 9 for originality. And I guess because I have to decide on who is going to win this matchup, I'm going to say that Damo wins this one by 16 points or more. Next matchup, we've got McRae with Cultists and Lockie with Highborn Elves. So McRae's bought... I had to look up the book because I didn't even have Cultists downloaded and I know nothing about them. But I've got a slight idea now, basically. So he's got 2 Wizard Masters, one of Evok and one of Thalma. And his general, because it's got Master Ritual and Scurrying Veil, is basically like its Scout. It's got 18-inch Inspiring Presence, I think, and it's March 20 because of the Scurrying Veil. So it's actually a super mobile general and Evok Master, which is probably pretty handy. His core is basically all Cultists, which are, from what I read, and it seemed to me, basically just like low weapon skill humans. But with the Kinslayers, it gives them +1 weapon skills that basically just humans, I guess. The Abyssal Conduit ones can summon demons, though. I don't know what Infiltrators is. I assume it either gives them Skirmish or Scout or Ambush or something like that. But that's all on the small ones. The Possessed are basically like sort of a half-human, half-demon unit. So they're Strength 4, 2 attacks each. With a great weapon, they'll be Strength 6. Chitness, Scales, and Light Armor gives them a 4-up armor save, and they've got a 5-up Aegis save. So they're kind of like shit weapon skill Kingsguard. Because they got a good armor save. They've got an Aegis save, which probably makes up for the fact that they're toughness 3 as opposed to toughness 4. And they're 2 attacks each. So the only thing they really lose in terms of comparing them to Kingsguard is Bodyguard. But they're a decent bit cheaper. So I reckon they're actually pretty good. I'd have to see how they actually get used and how they end up on the table. But their stat lines seem pretty decent. The Profane Idols are basically... like, there's the 2 upgrades for them. The Wicker Man gives grind attacks and flammable, I think. And the Heretic Golem, I'm pretty sure, gave +1 strength and AP. But basically, they're like giants. So, relatively similar stat line. They might only be large infantry. But their stat line reminded me a lot of giants. So, that's what I'm thinking of them as. And then the demons that he can summon are 3 Brazen Beasts, a Blazing Glory, and 4 Bloatflies. I know there's some point limit in terms of how much you can summon at once, but I didn't read about that, so I don't know how it works. I think Master of Ritual means that his Cult Leader can summon, and the Abyssal Conduit means that the Cultist can summon. I don't know if anything else in his list can contribute to summoning, but I could be entirely wrong on that. I don't know how to evaluate this list for strength. So I'm going to give it a 5... Is 5 average? 5.5 average. I think 5.5 is average on a scale of 10. So I'm giving it 5.5 because I have no fucking idea. But originality, because he's taking cultists, and he's not even going too heavy on the summon demons. Again, I could give him a 10 because he's taking cultists, but he didn't take Wizard Wally, so I'm only going to give it a 9. So he's done well on originality, and he might have done well on power. I don't know. I'll tell you after the tournament if McRae does well. But even if McRae does well, he's a good player. So he might just be carrying a bad list to success through his skill. So really, I have no idea. We'll just see how it works out. He's up against Lockie Thunderthighs Creeley. Lockie has a High Prince with the shooty strength bow, whatever it is, Master of Kangaroo Tower. He has finally taken a Wizard Wally, so we've got our first one. Using Shamanism. He's got a BSB with the Queen's Companion bonus and MR2. He's got a block of Seaguard, a block of Citizen Archers, 3 into 10 Rymanites with Banner of Speed, and 3 Giant Eagles. I don't know how I feel about Lockie's list. It feels... because he's just taken 3 blocks of the same thing as his sort of like main combat units, I guess. It feels like it's going to be fairly rock, paper, scissors. I mean, having 3 blocks of advanced 10 cavalry backed up by shamanism is surely pretty decent. But I think he's probably going to have trouble with things like McRae's list, where McRae just has these big blocks that even if you charge the Rymanites in, they'll get like, I mean, say they're 7 wide. I think that gives them 18 attacks on the charge. Probably hitting on 2s. Probably wounding on 2s or 3s. But then they're still only elves. So they're probably not breaking through things like McRae's list. He's probably going to do quite well against more MSU approaches. Because those Rymanites are just going to blast through, hit first, kill everything. And then if the opponent doesn't have good like counter charges set up, and it's kind of hard when you've got 3 super fast threats that can do that on the board to have good counter charges set up for all of them. I think it'd be quite good against that, but I do reckon it's probably a little bit vulnerable to matchups, and I don't think it's going to get over McRae's list in round 1. So I'm going to say I think there are some things that it can just roll through. And because it's decently defensive with shooting and counter-charge threats, it probably doesn't need so much to play into bad matchups as much as it might otherwise. I'm going to say a 6. I'm going to say a 6 for power, because I'm a bit skeptical about it. But taking Wizard Wally, and it's... the core and the characters are quite normal for high elves, but the Romanite blocks are interesting. And Shamanism's a cool lore to take, because Shamanism makes games more interesting, in my opinion. Like, everything that Shamanism does adds to the game, whereas a lore like Druidism is basically making the game more boring, more often than not. So, Shamanism is points in his favour, so I'm going to say a 7.5 out of 10 for originality for Lockie. In the matchup itself, I think that he's going to struggle, but McRae might struggle a little bit to take a lot of points out of Lockie. So I think Lockie will probably play defensive-ish, and I think he'll probably go down. We don't know the deployment secondary or map or anything yet, because that's all just rolled randomly at the start of the game. I reckon, unless it's, say, scoring units objective, I reckon McRae probably wins the objective. So I'll say McRae 14-6. Yeah, let's say that. Next up, we've got Ryan and Erdem. Warriors the Dark Gods off. Ryan has also gone with a Wizard Wally, so we've got another one, which is good, and he's also taken Shamanism, which is sick. He's got a Chosen Lord on Dragon. He's got a block of 24 Warriors with Greed and Zealot's Banner. 9 Fallen, 10 Warrior Knights of Gluttony with Lancers and Banner of Speed. A Battle Shrine, 6 Barb Horsemen, 5 Warhounds, and 2 Feldrak Elders. One with paired weapons, one with a great weapon. How do I feel about this one? I reckon it's pretty strong. The core block with great weapons, greed, pretty good. Obviously, there are some things that it's going to really struggle with. Like if it comes up against, I'd guess, Obsidian Guard, it's probably just going to get munched through. But there's a lot of things that it's going to be able to fight pretty well. The Lord and the Double Elder are 3 very solid monsters. The Lord's actually got a pretty cool kit out, in my opinion, that he's got the Burning Portent, the Idol of Spite, and Gluttony. So once he's beaten something or killed something, and so long as he hasn't overrun or pursued them, he'll actually have Strength 6, which is sort of one of the weaknesses of Burning Portent, that it's only tied to Strength 5. And Idol of Spite means that even if the first combat that he gets into, he's really wanting to be Strength 6 already, and he hasn't gotten the Gluttony bonus yet, he can down that, and then he's Strength 6 for that fight, and if he wins the fight, he'll go to Strength 6 permanently with Gluttony. And particularly with Shamanism, back it up for toughness, for extra strength on him or the dragon, for battle focus on it, and also just to do things to mess around with opponents shooting. I reckon it's a pretty good combo. Warrior Knights with Gluttony and Lancers I like as well, because you charge with your Strength 6, and then assuming you win the combat, because you've charged with Lancers, you go to Strength 5 for the rest of the game, which means that they sort of end up, even if you charge and it's in a large block or you don't break them or whatever, you're better at grinding because you've boosted yourself up with Gluttony. I reckon power-wise, it's pretty decent. I reckon it's pretty good because you've got a lot of, while you do have the sort of a mobile center with the warriors, you've got 3 really quite mobile single models that are all really dangerous. Shamanism's a good lore, and the Battle Shrine will also be able to give a little bit of range threat if needed. I've got a Gortak in my list, so against me, he'll be like, "Ooh, the Gortak could be pretty troublesome, but I'll just take the Warrior's Hereditary, and then you have to stop that every turn, and then my magic is better the whole game." So I reckon it's quite good. I'm going to give it an 8 for power. And for originality, I'd give it really high, except the Double Feldrak Elder is a bit, bog standard for warriors. So I'm going to have to only give him an 8. An 8 for power and an 8 for originality. I feel like at the end of this, everything's going to be pretty much everything's just above average, which doesn't make any sense. But I'm liking everything so far. Erdem has taken a Warriors list, which I don't know if any of you guys follow Alex Schmid's channel. He's talked a lot about Warriors, and I actually messaged Erdem when he submitted his list saying, like, oh, have you been watching Alex's video? This looks very suspicious of the things that he was discussing in one of his latest ones. And apparently they actually have a bit of a back and forth discussing Warriors ideas, which is why there's a bit of overlap there. Erdem hasn't taken a Wizard Wally, which is disappointing, but he decided he wanted to test an actual list and see how strong it actually is. He's gone Double Herald, Barb Chief on a Shadow Chaser with Thrice Forge and Symbol of Slaughter. He's got the pretty standard Warrior core setup of 3 units of 10 Lust Warriors. He's got a big block of 5 Chosen Knights with Flaming Standard. He's got a Greed Chosen Chariot, 4 Wretched Ones, and 8 Flayers. I like this one, to be honest. Like, for power. I reckon Double Herald is good. I know it's not sort of the most popular thing for Warriors at the moment, but I think it's quite solid, because they're good wizards, good in combat, and very mobile. So they're probably quite vulnerable against, like, shooting heavy armies that can throw cannons and stuff. Well, not throw cannons, but you know what I mean. Because if you lose one, it's a big deal. Like, it's a big chunk of your magic. It could be your general in this list, and it's 830 points. But playing them well and in matchups that aren't horrible, I think they're really solid. I also love the Barb Chief on Shadow Chase. I reckon he's such a handy piece. I don't like Symbol of Slaughter as much on him, because I think that the +1 to hit against him sort of makes him a bit more vulnerable than I'd like. I used to run this guy when I was running Warriors, and I took a Great Weapon, Dragonfire Gem, and maybe a Potion of Strength as well. But that was also when there was heaps of demon lists running around with the flaming Brazen Beasts, so whenever I played them, I'd be able to pop the Barb Chief just in front of that unit and go like, cool, I don't have to think about you for the rest of the game, because my Barb Chief has just answered you with his 2 upward save. The core is good, it's always good. Scoring, decent at combat, decent against ranged, and can flee from charges, so it's just a really solid way to get your scoring in with Warriors, basically. The 5 Chosen Knights. I mean, I've heard Schmid talk about them and say, like, yeah, these are, like, I like them. They're a really solid unit. I've never liked using them. I've never really seen them do that well. I am happy to be proven wrong by Erdem, who's a good player, so he'll probably use them well and he's got a good idea for them. But for me, I'm like, I don't know why you would take Chosen Knights when you've got Feldrax right there, which to me are just better. Chosen Chariot of Greed, I reckon, is a really good idea, because it just makes a little bit like the Warrior Knights with the Gluttony on their lances. It makes you a little bit less charge dependent, because if you get charged, you can sort of counter you can, like, take the whatever is the best option to fight your opponent, or even if you charge, just sort of in subsequent rounds of combat, going like, cool, I charged, so I used my halberds because I wanted to maximize the damage, but now I need a few more attacks because I don't have my impact hits, so I can take paired weapons. I reckon it's all just pretty cool. Wretched Ones are awesome. The only problem with this list is that there weren't enough points to take more. I think they're a super strong unit. And 8 Flayers. I love Flayers. I reckon they're a really handy unit. This one, he's given them light lances and shields so they can fight it better, and he's taken 3 extra from normal. But I think they're 140 points normally. So he's paid 80 extra points to get 3 extra models, give them a 4-up armor save instead of a 5-up, and make them strength 5 AP 1 on the charge. So he's paid, I guess, roughly less than like 5 dogs, so less than an extra unit of chaff to make this unit a versatile unit that can take war machines, probably beat other chaff, can even jump in as a support unit in like a combo charge. It's a bunker for the Barb Chief if you want to put him in there to protect him against shooting or something. It gives longer chaff ability, because if you use all 8, they can chaff like a bit under 16 inches, and block line of sight to things as well. I reckon they're really solid, and I reckon the list is really solid. I reckon I'm skeptical on the Chosen Knights, so I can't go all in, but I'm going to say an 8.5 on power. And I think because he's taken the Chosen Knights, but I don't see that often. I don't see Double Herald all that often. The extra flayers aren't that common, and the Chosen Chariot I don't see all that much. I reckon it's quite original as well. So I think the lack of Wally and the pretty boring normal warrior core brings it down a bit, but I'm going to go 7 for originality. If there was a Wally in there, I'd be much more kind to it, I think. In terms of the matchup, sort of hard for me to judge how this one's going to go. Because the single models can sort of just dance around each other. Shamanism's probably not the best lore to face Erdem's list, and I feel like the Exalted Heralds will have the range damage to pick off valuable wounds in Ryan's list. So I think the advantage goes to Erdem because he can basically avoid engaging where it's unfavourable with his important stuff, but still pick up points in the range game, which Ryan kind of lacks. So I think 13-7 to Erdem is my guess. I think that means I've backed the Kiwi in every matchup. Yeah, I've backed Damo, I've backed McRae, and I've backed Erdem. All right. Australia's not gone well so far. We'll see if we can recover this later on. Next, good. This is an all-Australia matchup, which means it doesn't matter what happens, Australia's going to win. We've got Sean with Warriors against Chris with Infernal Dwarves. So Sean has taken an Exalted Herald. He's taken a Druidism Wizard Wally. He's taken a big Halberd Sloth block in core. He's taken a big Chosen Sloth block. He's taken 2 Great Weapon Sloth Warrior Knight units, 2 Chimeras, and a Helmore. I've got some reservations about this list because it's quite static from what I see. Like, there's a lot of points in the Warriors and the Chosen, and the Warrior Knights aren't that quick. And particularly with Sloth, you lose your bonuses if you move too quickly. So they're very, very solid units, but I'm not sure exactly how well they can be used in some matchups, because sometimes the opponent's probably just going to say, that's fine, I don't have to worry about them. The Helmore obviously helps because they can teleport, but I haven't played against the Helmore in a long time, but I think you would have to have the gate, because I think you bring them up in Magic. I think you have to bring the gateway up in your Magic phase. In your next movement phase, you could teleport, and then in your next movement phase, you could charge. So your opponent can go, okay, I've seen where the gateway is, and I can react to that. The unit's now teleported, and I've still got 1 turn, just like ambush, to sort of mitigate that problem. So, particularly with only 1 Helmore and 1 Ominous Gateway, so like 1 portal to start the game, I don't know how effective that will be in increasing the maneuverability of those blocks. That said, though, the Exalted Herald is going to be quite handy, because the Exalted Herald's going to be able to sit there and go, I'm actually quite good at range damage. I'm also quite mobile to pick up points. The Chimeras can probably be helped with Druidism and with the Exalted Herald spells to add a bit of mobility to the list. And they'll be... The Herald particularly will be really handy with Druidism, because he's only large infantry, so the Summer Growth spell will give him back 2, or if thrones up, 3 wounds. Also, with Druidism, getting back Sloth wounds on those blocks is going to make them really hard to deal with. So I think that a lot of the time, Sean's sort of going to be faced with 2 situations. One is a list that can avoid engaging him, and he struggles to get points off, and then it's probably just sort of like a small points loss because of the damage that it'll take. I guess he'll probably, in a matchup like that, he probably loses the Chimeras. He maybe loses the Exalted Herald. He maybe loses the Helmore, but he probably doesn't lose much else because they're really hard to kill. And he's got Druidism to bring him back and make him tougher. So maybe a small points loss, and then it's just whether or not Objective can swing it. But then there are going to be other times when Sean just goes like, cool, you can't fight me, so I'm going to move across the board and I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And that's the game. So I think that it's going to be a really successful list over 4 games. Because he's going to have small losses when he loses and probably big wins when he wins. So for power, I reckon Druidism with Warriors is really good. I'm going to go with... It'd be even better in a team tournament because then he can just be thrown in front of anything. But then I guess Wizard Wally's unlikely to make an appearance in a team tournament because it really unbalances some ideas. I'm gonna go 8, 9. I'm gonna go 9 out of 10 for power. I reckon 9. And originality. He's got a Wally, and it's an unusual Warriors list, but it's sort of like a quite natural decision to, if you're taking Warriors, to go, well, Druidism's really good, Sloth's really good. But I don't think we see another one of them. We've got 3 Warriors lists. We've got 2 that have played. We've only got 1. So because no one else has taken the Druidism Wally or the Sloth units, I'm not going to punish his originality score. So I'm going to say an 8 for originality. Chris has got Infernal Dwarves. He's got a Taruk Commissioner BSB with the multi-wound weapon, and the Brass Bull would give him 5 wounds and a toxic breath weapon, I'm pretty sure. He's got a Taruk bunker for him to sit in. He's got a Prophet of Lugar on a chariot, who's an adept of alchemy. He's got a Wizard Wally with Druidism, which is a pretty good pick with Infernal Dwarves because they've got the armor that gives them a flaming ward, so you can chuck a regen on them, and then even if your opponent has flaming to get around it, you get your ward save because of your armor. Block of Shooty Citadel Guard, a big block of Vassals with bows, spears, and shields, big block of Slaves, a Gunnery team with a rocket battery, 2 Vassal Slingshots, a Kadim Titan with a rocket battery, and then 2 Giants, one with an Infernal Lash and one with a Tower Shield. There's a few things in there that I don't know well enough to say how good they are. I've played against the Citizen Giants a couple of times. I think the ones I played against had Tower Shields. They were okay. They were decent Giants because they got such a good armor save. It sort of helps the things that I often find problematic for Giants. I don't like the Shooty Kadim Titan. I think the Kadim Titan should be combat or nothing. If you're taking the Shooty one, you might as well just take an Infernal Engine or the actual War Machines, like on round bases. Sort of the Taruk bus is going to be good. The character's good. He does only have a 2-up ward save, so he might be a little bit vulnerable, but he's going to be able to get wounds back from Druidism. He's going to be able to get regen or extra toughness from it, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. It's a bit hard to tell. I think because it's got Druidism, I think it's pretty strong. Without Druidism, I might be a little bit skeptical of how much it can play into a lot of things. But I reckon with Druidism, it's going to be a hard nut to crack for quite a few armies. I don't know, because it's sort of, like, to me, I'm only really looking at that and thinking the Taruk unit is scary. The rest of it's sort of like, this is okay, we can deal with this. I think that because of the lack of shooting threats, because he's really only got the flintlocks and the rocket batteries that you really got to be scared about, and the fact that there's a little bit soft on combat, I think, because the Taruk bus is... I mean, it's 1,000 points and it's good, but if you can deal with it or if you can mitigate its impact, it's probably hard for a lot of the other things to do too much in combat. I reckon that it's probably about a 6 in power. But it's quite original. It's a lot different to what I see normally. Like, that Taruk build is different. The core setup is different. Citizen Giants are different. I reckon it's quite original, so I've got 8 on originality. 9, because it's got a Wizard Wally. We love Wizard Wally and we're rewarding him. In this matchup, I think that Chris will have some trouble, because I don't really think that his shooting will do that much, and I think that Sean can fight him pretty easily. Like, he's mostly static, so Sean can basically just sort of slowly move forward and go, all right, eventually I'm getting there, and then I'm going to beat you. We're going to have a Druidism off, but I'm better with Druidism. So, I mean, there is, I guess, the fact that there's... actually, there's not that much flaming in this list, is there? The Lugar Prophet would, I think, have it. An Alchemy can give it. But that's, I think... Infernal Lash might give flaming attacks as well. I think you can give magical attacks and flaming attacks to something within 6 inches. There's not that much flaming, so surprisingly, the regen would still probably be pretty handy for Sean's list. I reckon this is a big win to Sean. I think 17 plus to Sean. Because I don't really see how Chris can deal with the really tough blocks backed by Druidism coming up at him. And then I think we've only got one more matchup. Yeah, that's my one. Okay, so we have Glenn with his Infernal Dwarves and me with my Beastmen. So Glenn has brought a Prophet of Nezabikesh. I don't know which one that is, but he's on an Infernal Bastion. He's got Lugar's Dice, which I think gives him like a reroll on something. Attack, wound, save maybe. Eye of the Bull, which is like... I think it makes his Flintlock Axe auto hit and multi-wound 2, but the multi-wound 2 might only be in combat. I'm not 100% sure. He's got a Druidism Wizard Wally, just like Chris. He's got BSB on Bullish Shamut, which is pretty cool. Ghostly Guard and Shield. I assume that gives it a 1-up armor save against non-magical. So he'll be, pretty decent. Block of 27 Great Weapon Infernal Warriors. Block of Citadel Guard with Flintlock Axes, which is where the Bastion will go so that they can get all of their shots out of the Bastion. Block of 20 Shackled Slaves. And because Wizard Wally has Swole, I assume... So, I haven't mentioned this, but Swole basically just gives him a 25 by 25 base. Whereas normally he comes on a 20 by 20. So, with Swole, I'd expect him to go into the Shackled Slaves, because I think they're the 25 mil base ones. He's got a Kadim Chariot. He's got 12 Shuriken Forces with Blunderbusters and Great Weapons. And he's got 12 Shuriken Forces just with Great Weapons. Then an Infernal Engine Titan Mortar. And a Kadim Titan Rocket Battery. I really like Shuriken Forces with Blunderbusters. It seems like a really natural fit. Because they're march and shoot. So you can... rather than march 9 to shoot with the Blunderbusters, you can march 14, which gives you a 26-inch threat range rather than, 21. It's actually not as big as I thought. But regardless, because they're more mobile, you also sort of you've got better flee distances, you've got all that sort of stuff if you, to let you get your Blunderbusters in the right spot. The Prophet build is at least similar to a couple that I played in the tournament that I'm doing on my channel at the same time, the Who Let the Doge Out. He's pretty good in the Citadel card, like it's just 20 aim 3-up, strength 4 shots, which is just solid. The Ziggurat Regulars are a decent combat unit. They're not amazing, but with Druidism they're going to be better, and they're solid enough that like they're from core and they're at 500 points. They're pretty good value, I think. Again, I don't like the shooty Kadim Titan. I think if you want to take Kadim Titan, you take the combat one. Otherwise, just take 2 War Machines, both with rocket batteries in this list, I think. I might be a little bit wrong, because there might be the Fires of Industry limit thing. So maybe it's not quite possible to do how I want, but I don't like the shooty Kadim. I don't think he's good. The Infernal Engine is just always difficult to deal with. Titan Mortar, I think, is still only going to be 18-inch range, which makes it a bit easier to deal with, I guess. I don't know how powerful this one is. So the BSB is going to be helped by Druidism. I think that... I mean, it probably helps otherwise, but the problem is the short range of Druidism means that I think it's going to be a little bit difficult. He's going to need to keep those Shackled Slaves safe. So... maybe the crux of this list is how well he can protect his wizard. I mean, the wizard can jump out to other units and stuff, but he needs to be able to protect that wizard, which I think will be the determining factor of how well this list can do. It's not actually as shooty as some of the Infernal Dwarf lists that I've been seeing recently. So I think it'll probably want to go into combat more than most. He probably won't sit back as much. Like, usually Infernal Dwarves are quite sit back, move up a little bit, sort of shuffle to get things in range. The short range of a lot of their shots makes it quite interesting to play against. I think, unlike most gunline type things, there's a lot more counterplay and options you get because of the fact that they're quite limited in their lateral mobility and just the general range of their weapons, putting them in charge range a lot of the time. But this one, I think, is going to be less focused on the shooting. It's quite balanced in terms of being able to... So, against my list, I don't have much shooting in my Beastman list, for instance. Against me, Glenn's going to be able to... Okay, I can sort of sit back here. I can judge when I want to charge with my combat units and sort of base it on that. Whereas other lists, if they outrange him or whatever, he can still move up pretty well and try and fight and engage. I don't see anything that stands out at me as super strong. Like, a lot of Infernal Dwarves to me, just like, this is a solid list, but not spectacular. So with this one, I'm going to probably say a 7 on power, which means I think, other than Damo's list, I've given everyone above average on power. So maybe we just got to downgrade that to a 6-stage system and give Damo the worst one. Yeah, so 7 out of 10 power, and I think it's quite original, but he's taken a Wizard Wally, which is good, but it's also got Druidism, which seems like the natural fit for Infernal Dwarves, and the only other Infernal Dwarf player has done that as well, so that's a little bit of a hit. But I think most things there are actually quite... so if you take out the Prophet and the Citadel Guard, most of those things are a little bit less common. So I think it's quite original. So I'm going to say originality. With the Wally, I'm going to say an 8 on originality. So he only loses points on the fact that he's got Druidism rather than a different law, and the fact that he's got that Infernal Bastion with the Citadel Guard. But it's quite original. I like it. And then my list, it's terrible. Don't worry, we don't even need to worry about it. Basically, one of the reasons why I wanted to run this tournament, because I've stolen this idea from a tournament run in the UK, and as soon as I heard about it, I was like, I could get Witchcraft for Beastman, which I've wanted for ages. So basically, that's what I was always going to do no matter what. I tinkered with a few other ideas. I tinkered with Druidism, Infernal Dwarves. I tinkered with Divination Ogres, which is another one that I'd be like, this would be really strong. But I ended up just going like, no, I want Witchcraft in Beastman. It would be stronger if it was on the Soothsayer, because then a lot of the spells are short range on Witchcraft. So when I've got my Toughness 5 distracting Wizard, I can just put him in a combat unit and be like, cool, that's fine. He's actually up close to things and everything's all good. When he's a bit weaker, I'm going to need to manage that a bit better. So I do have Wizard Wally with Witchcraft. I've got a Centaur Chief BSB with a Greater Totem and Destiny's Call and MR2. I've got a Minotaur Warlord with... This is a build that I love. I don't think it's probably not the best one, but I find it a lot of fun. So he's got a shield with Obscuring Fog, which means that he doesn't get +1 agility when he charges, but every unit in contact with him is -1 agility no matter what. He's got Wild Form, which gives him... at the start of combat, he can go +1 strength or +1 toughness. But if he goes +1 strength, he's -1 toughness. And if he goes +1 toughness, he's -1 strength. He's got supernatural dexterity on a hand weapon, so extra agility and offensive skill. He's got a 5-up ward and a potion of swiftness. So basically, the rule with this guy is he's going before you. When he wants to go before you, he's going before you. Because if he drinks his potion of swiftness, he's agility 10 and you're -1. So there are very few situations where anything gets to strike before him. My core is 2 units of Ambushing Wildhorns and then 3 Raiding Chariots, as well as 10 Mongrel Raiders, which is one of the places that I can sit my Wizard Wally. I've got 15 Lance Centaurs with throwing weapons and Banner of Discipline, as well as Black Wing Totem. 5 Centaurs with paired weapons, 6 Minotaurs with Banner of Speed, Gnarled Hide Totem, and shields. I actually wanted to go paired weapons on them, but paired weapons are way more expensive than I think they should be. because it's shields are 12 and paired weapons are 10 points. So I think shields are obviously better than getting like one extra attack and one extra offensive skill when you're already rerolling to hit and have battle focus and stuff. It doesn't make much sense to me to not go with shields when shields are only 2 points more. 5 gargoyles, and I took 1 Gortak. I haven't taken Gortaks in... when was Masters? Masters 2019, which was in September. So almost 2 years since I've taken any Gortaks. I don't reckon from the list that we've seen he's going to be all that good in this tournament. But I've sort of taken some... I've struggled with Beastman lists for a while. So I played them heaps in like the last year or year and a half. And I've never really found something that I'm all that happy with. So I've sort of taken this and I've just gone, I'm going to more focus on things that I think are going to play interestingly rather than trying to find the most powerful things. I'm struggling to find a really powerful list anyway, so I just thought, it's a small tournament with a random extra rule giving you a Wizard Master if you want one of any lore. So I'll just take some things that seem like they could play really interestingly. So Lance Centaurs, I feel like are pretty good when I've got the 2 totems to give them extra agility, and the Witchcraft spell to debuff the opponent's agility. The extra movement from the Witchcraft attribute I think will be really handy. That's one of the reasons I gave the Minotaurs Banner of Speed, because they're now movement 7 base, and if I give them 1 attribute, they're movement 8, which makes them... they're not going to be Swift Stride, but they're fast enough that they can sort of be mini Cav, a little bit like Hugo's Obsidian Guard. And the Gorsak I also thought, with Raven's Wing, with extra rain, with extra advance from Evil Eye, and from the fact that like with Twisted Effigy and a few other things, like with my ambushes and stuff, I'm like, I can maybe deal with War Machines and range magic a little bit better than I normally could. So I might have a bit of a better time keeping him alive. I've also given the Centaurs throwing weapons and Banner of Discipline, because that means that when my Centaur Chief joins them, they can dance around together and use if I get all of them, that's going to be 30 strength 4 shots from the Centaurs, and no, I couldn't afford them on the Centaur Chief, so just the 30 strength 4 shots from the Centaurs, which is, it seems pretty good to me, and because he's the BSB and they got Banner of Discipline, it means that I can keep them sober without them running away. So a lot of things there that I'm like, yeah, I can see how it's valuable, but also, those Centaurs might just explode in a puff of smoke against decent shooting. Actually, I guess there aren't that many shots from a blunderbuss. I was going to say those blunderbusses will wipe them away, but hitting on 5s normally means that 4 hits, 2 or 3 wounds. It's actually not that bad. This matchup specifically, I don't know. I think that I'm going to be on the back foot because Glenn's going to be able to win the ranged game. I think that the Gortak won't survive, won't see combat. The ambushing Wildhorns may be handy to try and threaten those shackled slaves and make Wizard Wally dance around and get him somewhere else. But I can probably beat most things in combat. There's not that much there that's all that terrifying. So it just depends on how much of my list actually makes it in to get to fight Glenn, I think. I'll probably be pretty vulnerable with if he kills 2 Minotaurs, he can start picking out my Minotaur Warlord. But I run him a lot on his own, generally anyway. I've run that build before, without even a Minotaur unit to put him in. So I'm at least experienced enough at trying to avoid that sort of issue. I'm not going to give myself a power originality score because that seems weird, rating my own list like that. Predicting the matchup is also hard because if I say I'm going to win, it feels arrogant. If I say I'm going to lose and then I win, it feels like I'm underselling myself. But I think Glenn probably has the advantage. I'll have to rely on the fact that I've played a lot of Infernal Dwarves recently. I played them with Ogres, but I've played against Infernal Dwarves enough that I feel like I'm pretty well aware of the way they play. So I think I have a decent way to approach playing this matchup. Yeah, I reckon Glenn's got the advantage. So if I was leaning one way, I'd say Glenn will probably win, but I'll hope that I can outplay him, and that'll see me through. That's all the lists. That's all the matchups. So I'm not sure if I'll do battle reports for this one. It depends on how much time I have and how interesting the games are, and if I'm playing it. I might also be playing in another tournament because there's been one floated around on the US Discord as being announced relatively soon. I think Smith F was going to run that, but he's a very busy man, so he might be... I don't know if he's still going to do it or he might just be running later and announcing it. But I might end up playing in that, which would run sort of concurrently, which means I'd have to make a decision on which one I want to report on, or one will be really delayed. But I'm not really sure. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. If interesting things happen, I'll probably try to cover them on the channel. But otherwise, you can always join the Australian Discord if you want to know what's going on with that tournament and see the updates and stuff. Or just follow it on TourneyKeeper, because that's also going to have all the information. Anyway, thanks for your time today, guys. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop a comment, and I'll chat to you soon. Thanks.